You wake up to the sound of an alarm, sharp and insistent, cutting through the fog of sleep. Your hand reaches for the phone almost automatically, before your eyes are even fully open. Notifications are waiting for you. Emails marked urgent, messages from colleagues in different time zones, reminders of deadlines that never seem to end. The day has not even begun, and yet you already feel behind. The weight presses on your chest before your feet touch the ground. You shuffle into the kitchen, pour the first cup of coffee, but even that simple ritual no longer feels like comfort. You sip it while scrolling through headlines of crises, tragedies, markets falling, wars breaking out. The caffeine sharpens the mind, but instead of clarity, it only magnifies the tension inside. This is not just your story. It is the story of millions of people who start their day this way, with a heavy heart and a restless mind. Stress has become so normal that we hardly question it anymore. It is the water we swim in, invisible yet suffocating. But beneath the surface, something in you is whispering, life cannot be meant to feel like this every single day. What is this stress that clings to you like a shadow? At first glance, it seems to come from the outside, the endless stream of tasks, the bills, the unpredictable demands of others. Yet if you look more closely, you begin to notice something else. The pressure you feel is not only from the world, but also from the way your mind responds to it. Psychologists and spiritual teachers alike have spoken of the second arrow. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life, the deadline that must be met, the illness that strikes, the sudden layoff that shatters your plans. These arrows are real and sharp. But what cuts us even deeper is the second arrow we shoot into ourselves. The thought, this should not be happening. The self-blame, I am not good enough. The resentment, why me? Stress multiplies not simply because of what happens, but because of the story we attach to what happens. Imagine standing in the rain. The first arrow is the wetness of the storm. The second arrow is the voice inside saying, I hate this. This is terrible. This always happens to me. Suddenly, the rain is no longer just water. It becomes misery. What if the storm was simply allowed to be a storm? What if you could feel the drops on your skin without labeling them as punishment? The truth is, stress is not only an external force. It is the mind's refusal to allow life to unfold as it is. In this refusal, we tighten, we resist, we exhaust ourselves in a battle that cannot be won. Because life will keep bringing storms, whether or not we approve. Picture yourself swimming against a strong current. Every muscle strains, every breath burns, yet the river does not change direction because of your effort. This is how most of us live, pushing against reality, demanding that it bend to our desires. No wonder exhaustion has become our constant companion. There is another way. Ancient wisdom suggests that peace is not the absence of storms, but the discovery of a sky so vast that the storm is only a passing event. Imagine your mind not as a battlefield, but as the open sky. Thoughts and worries come and go like clouds, but the sky remains unbroken, untouched. Beneath the turbulence, there is a stillness that stress cannot reach. You may wonder, but how can I find that stillness when my life is so demanding? The answer is disarmingly simple, by returning to the present moment again and again. When you wash a bowl, just wash the bowl. When you drink a cup of tea, just drink the tea. It sounds almost trivial, yet it is revolutionary. Because stress thrives in the mind's projections into the past where regrets live, into the future where fears multiply. The present, in contrast, is usually bearable, often even beautiful in its ordinariness. Think of a morning when you pause to notice the warmth of sunlight on your skin, or the taste of a single strawberry, or the sound of a child's laughter in the distance. For that brief moment, the pressure loosened its grip. Nothing external changed, but you stepped into the vastness of the sky instead of wrestling with the clouds. The practice is not about perfection. Your mind will wander 1,000 times, pulled by worries and lists and unfinished tasks. Each time you gently return, like guiding a child back home. That return is the heart of the practice. Not to scold yourself for drifting, but to smile at the realization that you are awake again, present again. Over time, you begin to see that stress is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a teacher pointing you back to yourself. Stress says, "Notice me. Notice how you are resisting." And in noticing, the resistance softens. You begin to experience moments of freedom, even in the middle of chaos. You might still answer emails, still commute through traffic, still face deadlines. But the inner war, the second arrow, no longer consumes you. You carry the same responsibilities, yet you carry them differently, with more spaciousness, with more breath. This is the beginning of liberation, not escaping life, but meeting it with a new quality of awareness. Awareness that does not fight the storm, but stands as the sky in which storms arise and fade. Perhaps you are wondering if this is possible for you. The truth is, it has always been possible. Right here, in the pause between breaths, in the space between thoughts, there is a doorway back to yourself. And once you glimpse it, you will see that stress is not the whole story of your life. It is only a passing cloud dot. There is a moment, often hidden in the rush of the day, when you realize that you are running on empty. Your body moves, your hands type, your mouth answers questions, but inside, you feel like a ghost of yourself. Exhaustion is no longer just physical. It has seeped into the spirit. You may wonder, how long can I keep going like this? And yet, you keep pushing, telling yourself that this is normal, that everyone feels the same. In truth, exhaustion is not simply the result of too much work. It comes from the way we relate to our own lives, the way we constantly demand that things be different from how they are. Stress is not only a matter of tasks. It is a matter of perspective. The teachings of the Buddha suggest a different way to meet stress, not by eliminating every difficulty, but by transforming the way we experience them. Imagine you are holding a heavy stone. At first, it feels manageable, but after a while, the weight becomes unbearable, not because the stone has grown heavier, but because you have been gripping it so tightly. Stress is like this. The events of life may not change, but the way we hold them determines whether we collapse or stand strong. Mindfulness is the art of loosening the grip. It is not about escaping, not about pretending the stone is not there. It is about opening the hand and noticing that the stone can rest more lightly when we do not cling. This simple shift from grasping to holding gently is the essence of practice. You may ask, but how do I begin? Begin with the breath. It is always with you, waiting like an anchor in the storm. Close your eyes for a moment, inhale deeply, and feel the air enter your body. Exhale slowly and notice the release. This is not a trick. This is life itself, reminding you that you are here, that you are alive. Each time you return to the breath, you step out of the spinning wheel of thoughts and rest in the present moment. The mind will resist. It will tell you this is useless. You don't have time. You must keep thinking. That is the old habit, the storm pulling you back. But if you persist, even for a few seconds, you will taste the stillness beneath the noise. Stillness is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of awareness. Washing a dish can become meditation if you give it your full attention. You feel the warm water, the texture of the bowl, the simple act of caring for what you hold. Suddenly, you are no longer trapped in past regrets or future worries. You are here. This is what ancient teachers meant when they said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Life does not need to change for peace to appear. Only the way you experience it changes. Stress thrives on resistance, but peace blossoms in acceptance. There is a story of a monk who was asked, "What is the path to liberation?" He answered, "Accept everything." The questioner was shocked. Everything? Even pain? Even loss? Even fear? The monk simply nodded. Acceptance does not mean passivity. It does not mean you stop working or stop caring. It means you stop fighting with what is already here. You stop stabbing yourself with the second arrow of resistance. And in that stopping, a new kind of energy is released, the energy of presence, of clarity, of compassion. Think of the sky again. No matter how many storms pass through, the sky itself remains untouched. Clouds form and dissolve, rain falls and clears, lightning flashes and fades. Yet the sky is never broken. In the same way, beneath your stress, there is a boundless awareness that has never been harmed. To touch it is to realize that you are larger than your worries, more spacious than your exhaustion. From that place, you can meet stress not as an enemy, but as a messenger. The tension in your shoulders says, "Remember to breathe." The racing thoughts say, "Come back to the present." Each signal is a reminder, not a punishment. Over time, stress itself becomes a guide, pointing you back to your true nature. Some people believe they must escape their life completely to find peace, move to a mountain, abandon their job, leave everything behind. But the teaching is clear. The path is not outside of life, it is within it. You can find peace in the middle of traffic, in the middle of meetings, in the middle of chaos. The outer world may still be demanding, but your inner world becomes steady, like the ground beneath your feet. And when you are steady, you begin to notice others. You see that everyone around you is also carrying their own heavy stone. The colleague who seems impatient, the stranger who cuts you off in traffic, the friend who forgets to call back, all of them are swimming against their own currents. When you realize this, compassion arises naturally. Their struggle is your struggle. Their stress is your stress. And in that recognition, the heart softens. You are no longer alone. This is perhaps the most surprising gift of mindfulness. Not only does it free you from your own suffering, it also connects you to others. You begin to live with more kindness, more patience, more love. And in giving these to others, you find that your own burden lightens. Stress loses its grip because you are no longer fighting for yourself alone. You are walking together with all beings. This is the invitation of the practice. Not to wait for a perfect life, but to enter fully into the life you already have, with awareness and compassion. Step by step, breath by breath, you reclaim the space that stress once occupied. You learn that the storms will come, but you are not the storm. You are the sky, and the sky is vast enough to hold it all. Money is one of the most powerful forces in modern life. It is not just paper or numbers on a screen. It carries the weight of survival, the promise of security, and the fear of loss. In America, where opportunities seem endless, money often feels like the gatekeeper to freedom. And yet, for so many, it becomes a source of deep anxiety. Picture a young graduate stepping into the world with hope and determination, but also with tens of thousands of dollars in student loans. The ink on the diploma is barely dry, and already the burden presses heavily on their shoulders. Each month, the reminder arrives in the form of a bill, a number that never seems to shrink no matter how hard they work. They take a job, perhaps not one they love, but one that pays enough to keep them afloat. The cycle begins: wake up early, commute, work long hours, return home exhausted, only to repeat it the next day. In the quiet of the night, the thought returns: will I ever be free of this debt? Others know a different kind of pressure. A family with young children, facing the cost of health care, the endless rise of rent, the uncertainty of job stability. They watch the news and hear of inflation, layoffs, recessions. Even when the paycheck arrives, it often disappears almost as quickly as it came into groceries, utilities, gas, insurance, unexpected emergencies. There is little room to breathe, little space to feel secure. And beyond these basic struggles lies another layer, the constant comparison to others. Social media scrolls by with images of vacations, new cars, bigger houses, people smiling in perfect kitchens. Even if you are managing, even if your bills are paid, a voice whispers, "You are behind, you are missing out, you are not enough." This endless measurement against others turns money from a practical tool into a symbol of self-worth. When you have more, you feel superior. When you have less, you feel ashamed. This subtle poison seeps into friendships, marriages, communities. Arguments over money fracture relationships, leaving wounds that last longer than the debt itself. Yet beneath this constant chase lies a truth we often overlook. Money is never truly stable. Economies rise and fall, fortunes are gained and lost, salaries increase and shrink. The security we try to build with money is always on shifting ground. It is like building a house on sand, believing it will last forever. And when the waves come, we are shocked to find the walls collapsing. The Buddha spoke often of impermanence, the reality that nothing, no possession, no status, no sum of money can remain fixed. To resist this truth is to suffer. To accept it is to find peace. When we cling to money as the sole source of safety, we inevitably live in fear, because deep down we know it can slip away at any time. Think of a river flowing swiftly. You reach into the water, trying to grab a handful and hold it tightly. The more you clench, the faster it slips through your fingers. But if you cup your hands gently, the water rests there, cool and refreshing. Money is like this. When we cling desperately, it becomes a source of stress. When we hold it lightly, it can serve its purpose without consuming us. The problem is not money itself, but the grip we place upon it. There is a story of a man who had everything: wealth, possessions, influence, but never felt satisfied. Every gain led only to more desire. Finally, he approached a teacher and asked, "Why do I never feel complete?" The teacher handed him a cup and poured tea until it overflowed. The man cried out, "Stop, it is spilling everywhere." The teacher smiled. "Your life is like this cup, always full, always overflowing with grasping, never resting in enough." The lesson was not about abandoning wealth, but about understanding the endless hunger of attachment. The heart that always says, "Just a little more," will never find rest. Perhaps you recognize this in yourself. The moment you reach a financial goal, another one appears. The raise at work feels good for a week, then fades into the background as expenses rise to meet it. The new gadget excites you for a day, then joins the forgotten pile in a drawer. This cycle is not a failure of money, but a misunderstanding of what truly nourishes us. What nourishes us is not accumulation, but connection. Not possession, but gratitude. Consider a simple meal shared with a friend, laughter echoing across the table. In that moment, joy is not measured by the cost of the food, but by the warmth of companionship. Or think of the feeling when you give to someone in need, a donation, a small gift, a helping hand. Strangely, in giving, you often feel richer than in receiving, because in that act, you are reminded of abundance that has nothing to do with numbers in a bank account. The real poverty is not the lack of money, but the lack of contentment. And the real wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the capacity of the heart to recognize enough. When you pause to look at what you already have: shelter, food, breath in your lungs, you may discover that life has already given you more than you realize. This recognition does not erase the challenges of bills and debts. It does not magically cancel loans or reduce prices, but it changes the inner landscape from one of desperation to one of dignity. You are no longer trapped in the illusion that your value equals your possessions. Instead, You stand in the truth that your worth is immeasurable, untouched by fluctuations of money. From this place, money returns to its rightful role, a tool, not a tyrant. It can support you, but it does not define you. It can provide comfort, but not identity. It can ease life, but it cannot fulfill life. When you see this clearly, a new kind of freedom emerges, the freedom to live without fear of loss, and without the endless hunger for more. What if money was never meant to be the measure of your worth? What if the endless chase for more was not the path to security, but the very root of your unease? The Buddha taught that all things are impermanent, and this includes wealth. No fortune lasts forever. No possession remains unchanged. The stock market rises and falls. Jobs come and go. Economies expand and contract. To cling to money as a guarantee of safety is to grasp its smoke. The tighter you hold, the more it slips away. But there is a different way to live. Instead of tying your peace of mind to numbers in a bank account, you can anchor it in something that does not change. That anchor is the recognition of your own completeness. Beneath the anxiety of not enough lies a deeper truth. You are already whole. When you breathe in, you already have the gift of life. When you look up at the sky, you already share in a beauty that no money can buy. The practice is not to deny money, but to put it back in its proper place. It is a tool, not a master. Imagine a farmer who depends on the river to water his crops. If the river flows, he rejoices. If the river dries, he despairs. But if he learns that the river is always changing, he no longer demands that it stay full. Instead, he adapts, he plants wisely, he learns to trust the rhythm of nature. In the same way, when you accept that money flows like a river, you no longer suffer when it changes course. You work, you earn, you spend, but without clinging, without fear. You live in harmony with impermanence, rather than in denial of it. Gratitude is one of the simplest and most powerful practices for transforming your relationship with money. Each day, pause to notice what you already have. A meal on your table, a roof above your head, a friend who listens. These are not small things, they are treasures. In recognizing them, your heart begins to rest. The constant hunger for more softens, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of enough. Generosity is another doorway to freedom. It may seem counterintuitive. If you are already worried about money, why give any away? But the act of giving, even something small, breaks the grip of fear. It reminds you that abundance is not about hoarding, but about flow. When you share, you participate in the circulation of life itself. And paradoxically, in giving, you feel richer, because your heart expands, and no bank account can measure that wealth. Consider the story of a poor woman who had only a little rice to eat each day. When a monk passed by, she offered half her portion. Her neighbors laughed. How foolish, they said, to give away what little she had. But the monk blessed her, saying, "You have given from the depth of your heart. That wealth cannot be taken away." And in her own heart, she felt lighter, freer. Generosity revealed a richness that poverty could never touch. Contentment is perhaps the rarest form of wealth. In the modern world, we are taught that success means constant growth, constant acquisition. But the Buddha spoke of a different treasure, the joy of knowing when you have enough. Contentment does not mean settling for less than you need. It means recognizing that beyond a certain point, more adds little to happiness. A larger house, a newer car, another gadget, none of these fill the emptiness if the heart itself is restless. But a heart that rests in contentment can find peace even in simplicity. When you practice mindfulness around money, you begin to see clearly how desire and fear drive your choices. Instead of spending out of impulse, you pause and breathe. Instead of envying what others have, you return to gratitude for your own life. This awareness transforms your relationship with money from one of bondage to one of balance. You may still pursue goals, save for the future, plan wisely, but you do so with ease, not desperation. You understand that money is part of life, not the whole of it. And you discover that real security does not come from the outside, but from the inside, from a mind that is steady and a heart that is free. Imagine holding money like you would hold water in your palm. If you clutch too tightly, it spills. If you hold gently, it rests there. This is the art of non-attachment. Use money with care, but do not bind your identity to it. Let it serve you, but never let it own you. In this way, even financial uncertainty cannot shake your inner stability, because you know that your true wealth is not in possessions, but in awareness, compassion, and peace. Step by step, you begin to see money not as an enemy, nor as a savior, but simply as part of the flow of life. And when you see it this way, the anxiety that once consumed you loses its power. You breathe easier. You live lighter. And you discover that real abundance has been with you all along, waiting not in the future, but in this very moment. Anxiety often feels like a shadow that follows you everywhere. You wake up and before the day even begins, the mind has already started spinning. What if I fail this project? What if the market crashes? What if my child gets sick? What if tomorrow everything falls apart? These questions arrive uninvited, and they rarely stay silent. They circle like restless birds, never letting you rest. The world outside may look ordinary a bright morning, a quiet street, the sound of a neighbor walking their dog, but inside, the storm of anxiety is already raging. Imagine yourself sitting in a car on the freeway. The traffic is heavy, horns are blaring, and you are running late. Your hands tighten on the steering wheel. Your shoulders ache with tension. You check the clock again and again, as if staring at the numbers will make time bend to your will. Your heart races, not just because of the cars around you, but because of the thoughts inside your mind. I cannot be late. If I am late, everything will go wrong. In that moment, you are not only driving on the road, you are driving through a maze of fears. This is what anxiety does. It pulls you out of the present moment and chains you to 1,000 imagined futures. Each one feels real, as though disaster is waiting just around the corner. Anxiety feeds on control. The mind believes that if it can anticipate every possibility, if it can prepare for every outcome, it will finally feel safe. And so it spins, endlessly rehearsing scenarios, endlessly calculating. But the safety never arrives. Instead, the mind becomes more and more exhausted, like a person swimming against a current that only grows stronger. The truth is, much of life is beyond our control. Weather shifts, accidents happen, people change, economies turn. You may try to hold the reins of fate tightly in your hands, but sooner or later, you realize that the horse is not obeying. The harder you pull, the wilder it runs. Think of a river flowing swiftly downhill. You jump in and fight to swim upstream, convinced that you must reach the source. Every muscle strains, every breath burns, but the river does not stop to honor your effort. It keeps flowing, indifferent to your struggle. Anxiety is like this, the battle against the flow of life. We believe that by worrying, by controlling, by resisting, we can stop the river. But instead, we only wear ourselves down. There is an ancient story about a farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors came to comfort him. Such bad luck. They said. The farmer only replied, maybe. A few days later, the horse returned, bringing several wild horses with it. The neighbors exclaimed, "What good fortune!" The farmer answered, "Maybe." Soon after, his son tried to ride one of the wild horses and broke his leg. Again, the neighbors cried out, "What a tragedy!" And again, the farmer said, "Maybe." A week later, soldiers came to the village, drafting young men for war. Because of his broken leg, the farmer's son was spared. This story shows us what anxiety tries to deny, that the future cannot be fully predicted, that outcomes are never as clear as we imagine. What looks like disaster may hide a blessing. What looks like success may bring new challenges. The attempt to label events as purely good or bad, safe or unsafe, is itself a source of suffering. Anxiety is not simply about what happens. It is about the insistence that life should unfold according to our script. And when it doesn't, we panic. But life has its own rhythm, its own flow. The irony is that the more we try to control it, the more anxious we become. It is like clutching sand in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Perhaps you know this feeling. Lying awake at night, rehearsing conversations in your mind, imagining outcomes that may never come. The body is tired, but the mind refuses to rest. You may tell yourself, "I am preparing, I am being responsible." Yet in truth, you are sacrificing the present moment to a future that may never arrive. The price of this illusion of control is your peace. Anxiety often disguises itself as care, as love, as responsibility. A parent worries endlessly about their child, believing that the worry itself is proof of love. A worker obsesses over every detail, convinced that constant vigilance will prevent mistakes. But worry does not protect. It only drains. True care, true responsibility, come not from fear, but from clarity. When you are clear, you can respond wisely. When you are anxious, you react blindly. The first step, then, is to see anxiety for what it is, not a shield, not a sign of love, not a measure of control, but simply a habit of the mind. A habit that believes fear can keep you safe. Once you see this, you begin to loosen its grip. You begin to question, is this thought real? Or is it just another cloud passing through the sky of my mind? In that questioning, space opens. The storm begins to thin. And in that space, you realize something profound. Safety was never about controlling the future. Safety is about resting fully in the present. The future will always carry uncertainty. But here, in this breath, you are alive. And in this aliveness, you have everything you need. The teachings of the Buddha remind us of a truth we often forget. Life is uncertain, and it has always been uncertain. Our attempt to control every outcome is like trying to command the ocean's waves. We shout at the tide, we demand it stay still, but the water pays us no attention. It flows in and out, as it has for thousands of years. To live with less anxiety is not to freeze the ocean, but to learn how to float upon it. Floating does not mean you stop swimming. It means you allow the water to carry you. You move with the rhythm of what is, instead of fighting against it. This is the essence of equanimity, a quality the Buddha described as the deep balance of mind that remains steady no matter what arises. Equanimity does not erase joy or sorrow. It simply allows you to experience them without being pulled under. Imagine yourself standing in the middle of a storm. The rain falls hard, the wind howls, yet in the center, you find a calm space where you are not broken by the chaos. That calm center is within you, waiting to be discovered. Anxiety loses its grip the moment you realize you do not have to chase every thought or control every outcome. You can stand as the witness, grounded and spacious, while the storm passes around you. One way to practice this is through mindful breathing. When you feel the wave of worry rising, pause. Inhale slowly, feeling the air enter your lungs. Exhale gently, letting the tension flow out. With each breath, you anchor yourself in the present moment, where fear has no place to grow. The mind will try to drag you back into the future. What if this happens? What if that fails? But the breath brings you back, again and again, to the only reality that exists. this moment. Another practice is letting go of judgment. So much of our anxiety comes from labeling events too quickly. This is bad. This is good. This is a disaster. This is perfect. The story of the farmer and his horse shows us how misleading these judgments can be. We cannot see the full picture of life as it unfolds. What seems terrible today may bring unexpected blessings tomorrow. What appears fortunate now may carry hidden burdens. By loosening our grip on judgment, we loosen the grip of fear. We begin to accept life as a flowing river rather than a puzzle we must solve. The Buddha also taught the practice of compassion as an antidote to fear. When anxiety takes over, the mind becomes narrow, focused only on self, my safety, my future, my control. Compassion expands the view. It reminds you that others, too, are struggling with uncertainty. The driver honking in traffic is also worried about being late. The colleague who snaps at you may be carrying private fears. When you open your heart to their suffering, your own anxiety softens. You realize that you are not isolated in your struggle. You are part of a vast web of beings, all learning to navigate the unknown. In this shared vulnerability, compassion arises naturally, and with compassion comes courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to meet fear with an open heart. It is the quiet voice that says, even though I do not know what will happen, I can still take this step, I can still breathe, I can still live with presence. Through mindfulness, equanimity, and compassion, you begin to shift from control to trust. Trust does not mean blind faith that everything will turn out as you wish. It means trusting yourself to meet whatever arises with awareness and wisdom. It means trusting the flow of life, even when it does not follow your script. Trust is like planting a seed. You do not control the rain or the sunlight, yet you place the seed in the soil with care, and you allow nature to do its work. In the same way, you act with clarity in the present, but you release the illusion that you can command the future. You do your part, and you let life do its part. Over time, you may discover that letting go does not mean losing control. It means finding a deeper kind of freedom. The freedom to live without being chained to constant fear. The freedom to breathe fully, to love deeply, to rest in the unknown without panic. The waves will still come, the storms will still rise, but you will meet them differently. Not as a desperate swimmer thrashing against the current, but as one who has learned to float. Floating, you are carried. Floating, you are free. Loneliness is one of the quietest yet most painful forms of suffering in modern life. You can be surrounded by people in an office filled with chatter, at a party with music, even in a family gathering, and still feel as if no one truly sees you. This is the paradox of our age. Constant connection through phones, messages, and social media, yet a deep hunger for genuine intimacy. Imagine returning home after a long day. You unlock the door, step inside, and are met with silence. The walls echo with stillness. You drop your bag, heat up some food, and turn on the television just to fill the emptiness. The characters on the screen laugh and cry, but none of them know your name. You scroll endlessly on your phone, seeing glimpses of other people's lives' vacations, smiling couples, families gathered around dinner tables. Instead of comfort, each image sharpens the ache inside. Why not me? Why am I still alone? Loneliness is not just the absence of company. It is the absence of being understood. You may have hundreds of online friends, dozens of contacts in your phone, yet when the night grows quiet, you feel the weight of isolation pressing on your chest. The heart longs not simply for interaction, but for connection, for someone who listens, who cares, who recognizes your inner world. Relationships themselves can also become a source of loneliness. A couple may live under the same roof, but drift apart emotionally, speaking only about schedules, bills, and chores. never about dreams, fears, or the soul's longing. A child may sit across from a parent, both staring at screens, their words reduced to fragments, their hearts divided by invisible walls. In these moments, you realize that loneliness is not solved by physical presence alone. It is possible to share a bed, a meal, a life, and still feel unseen. Why does loneliness hurt so much? Because deep inside, we know we were not meant to live as separate islands. Human beings are born with the need to bond. A newborn cries out not only for food, but for touch, for warmth, for the presence of another being. This need never truly leaves us. As adults, we may disguise it with careers, possessions, or distractions, but the heart continues to yearn for connection. In America today, loneliness has become so widespread that some call it an epidemic. Studies reveal that millions report feeling isolated, even when surrounded by others. This isolation affects more than emotions. It weakens the body, increasing stress, harming health, even shortening lifespan. But beyond statistics, there is the raw experience. Lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, feeling the emptiness stretch out like an endless horizon. Loneliness often carries shame. People tell themselves, I should be stronger. I should not need anyone. I should be fine on my own. Yet this only deepens the wound. To need connection is not weakness. It is part of being human. Denying this truth is like denying hunger or thirst. Loneliness also arises when we build walls around our hearts. Perhaps you have been hurt before, betrayed by a friend, abandoned by a partner, dismissed by family. The pain taught you to protect yourself, to keep distance. But the very walls meant to shield you become your prison. You find yourself safe, but alone. The mind whispers, if I open up again, I will be hurt again. And so the cycle continues. Another cause of loneliness is comparison. You look at others who seem happily married, surrounded by friends, embraced by community, and you believe something is wrong with you. But appearances are deceptive. The smiling photo may hide tension. The couple holding hands may feel distant inside. Loneliness touches everyone at some point. You are not alone in feeling alone. The problem is not that loneliness exists. It is that we often do not know how to meet it. Instead of facing it, we try to numb it with work, with entertainment, with endless scrolling. These distractions may silence the ache for a moment, but when the noise fades, the emptiness returns, often stronger than before. Loneliness is like a quiet room you are afraid to enter. You keep the door closed, filling your life with sound and motion. But the room waits, and until you step inside, you cannot truly find peace. The first step is to acknowledge it, to whisper gently to yourself, yes, I feel alone. Yes, I long for connection. There is courage in honesty. There is healing in facing the truth without judgment. Because once you recognize your loneliness, you can begin the journey of transforming it, not by denying it, not by drowning it in distractions, but by opening to its message. For loneliness, beneath its ache, carries a message. You are longing to return to connection. You are longing to remember that you belong. And that longing is not a flaw. It is the very key to finding your way back to love. The Buddha taught that the deepest illusion of the human mind is the belief in separation. We see ourselves as small, isolated selves, cut off from others, and this belief becomes the seed of loneliness. But in truth, no one is ever truly separate. Just as a wave cannot exist apart from the ocean, you cannot exist apart from the vast web of life. Your breath comes from the trees. The trees live because of the rain. The rain falls because of the clouds, and the clouds gather because of the ocean. You are part of this great dance, woven into every being and every moment. Loneliness begins to soften when you see this truth, not as philosophy, but as lived reality. Imagine sitting quietly and following your breath. Inhale and notice the air entering your body. That air was once inside a leaf, once drifting through the sky, once carried by the winds across mountains and seas. Exhale and realize that your breath now nourishes the plants, perhaps even the person sitting beside you. You are not breathing alone. Each breath is a thread in the tapestry of life. The practice of mindfulness reveals that connection is already here. You do not have to manufacture it. You only have to notice it. Loneliness tells you, you are alone. You do not belong. But mindfulness whispers, you are here. You are part of everything. You have never been outside the circle of life. This recognition transforms the ache of isolation into a doorway to compassion. When you understand that others also suffer from loneliness, your heart naturally expands toward them. You realize that the stranger on the bus, the colleague at work, the neighbor you rarely greet, all of them may be carrying the same quiet ache. And in that moment, compassion arises. May you be well. May you feel loved. May you know you are not alone. Compassion is not a duty. It is a natural response to seeing clearly. The Buddha called this practice metta, or loving kindness. It begins with yourself. Close your eyes, breathe gently, and repeat silently. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be loved. At first, it may feel awkward, even artificial. But with patience, the words begin to sink into the heart. You start to feel a warmth toward yourself, a softening of the harsh voice that says you are unworthy. Then you extend the same wish to others. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you be loved. First to someone you care about, then to someone neutral, and finally even to someone difficult. The circle grows until it includes all beings. This practice does not erase loneliness overnight, but it changes its nature. Loneliness is no longer a prison. It becomes a reminder to open the heart wider. Each time you feel alone, you can transform it into a moment of connection by silently sending loving kindness into the world. And though no one may hear it, your own heart feels lighter. Relationships also heal through the same principle of presence. Too often, we are with others physically, but absent in attention. The Buddha taught deep listening, not to reply, not to argue, not to fix, but simply to understand. When you listen this way, even a few minutes can dissolve years of distance. Someone who feels unseen suddenly feels visible. And in making space for their story, your own loneliness softens, because you too are participating in genuine connection. Consider how it feels when someone looks into your eyes without distraction, without judgment, and simply says, I hear you. That moment is medicine, and you can offer that medicine to others, even in small ways. A smile to a stranger, a patient ear to a friend, an honest word to a loved one. Each act of presence weaves another thread into the fabric of belonging. The walls we built around our hearts, walls of fear, shame, or pride, begin to crumble when we practice compassion. Loneliness shrinks not by forcing others to fill us, but by allowing ourselves to flow outward, to give and to connect. When you realize that to care is to be connected, and that connection is always available, loneliness loses its power. Finally, the greatest teaching is this: your truest companion is already within you. Beneath the stories of abandonment and rejection, there is a presence that has never left you. Call it awareness, call it true nature, call it the original mind. It is always here, silently watching, patiently holding, never abandoning. When you touch this presence in meditation, you realize you are never alone. You may walk through empty streets, you may sit in a quiet room, but the vastness of life beats in your chest, flows in your breath, and shines in your awareness. Loneliness dissolves into belonging, not because the world has changed, but because you have awakened to the truth. You were never separate to begin with. Technology was created to connect us. to make life easier, faster, more efficient. And in many ways, it has done exactly that. With a small device in your pocket, you can speak to someone across the globe, see their face in real time, share your thoughts with thousands in a single post. But hidden within this dazzling web of connection is a paradox. Never before have we been so linked, and yet never before have so many felt so disconnected. Picture a family sitting down to dinner. Plates are on the table, food is steaming, but each person's gaze is cast downward, lit by the glow of a screen. The father checks emails, the mother scrolls through updates, the children swipe through videos. Words are exchanged, but they are fragments, distracted, half-hearted. The meal passes, the dishes are cleared, and though the family has spent an hour together, their hearts have hardly touched. Or imagine a young professional commuting on the train. Surrounded by dozens of people, the carriage is silent, except for the soft tapping of phones. Each person is in their own digital world, scrolling through news, checking likes, refreshing feeds. Strangers sit inches apart, yet oceans divide them. Technology has given us constant access to information, but taken away the quiet moments of simply being. The mind, overstimulated, jumps from one headline to another, one notification to the next. There is no space left to rest. When was the last time you stood in line at a cafe and simply noticed your breath, or the sound of laughter from the next table, or the sunlight streaming through the window? More likely, the phone was in your hand, filling every gap with noise. The danger is not technology itself, but our dependence on it, our unconscious surrender. Each ping and vibration becomes like a tiny hook pulling our attention away from the present moment. Over time, this constant fragmentation creates a subtle but profound disconnection, not only from others, but from ourselves. We begin to feel restless when no screen is near, anxious when no update is available, empty when no one is liking or commenting on our posts. The self, once rooted in lived experience, becomes entangled in digital mirrors. You may notice this when you take a photo of a sunset. Instead of simply watching the sky blaze with color, you rush to capture it, filter it, share it. The moment slips away while you are busy curating how it will appear to others. Slowly, you stop living for experience itself and start living for its display. The present moment becomes something to trade, not something to savor. The result is a subtle hunger that never feels satisfied. No matter how many messages you send, how many followers you gain, how many videos you watch, the emptiness persists. Because what the heart truly longs for is not endless stimulation, but genuine presence. Presence cannot be downloaded or streamed. It arises only when you give your full attention to the here and now. Technology often convinces us that more information will bring peace, that more connection will end loneliness. But the truth is, depth matters more than quantity. A single mindful conversation can nourish more than 1,000 quick exchanges. A few silent minutes with yourself can restore more than hours of scrolling. Think of how it feels to sit under a tree with no device in hand, listening to the wind move through the leaves. The stillness may feel unfamiliar at first, even uncomfortable. But slowly, the nervous system relaxes, the mind settles, the heart remembers its natural rhythm. This is what technology often obscures, the richness of the ordinary moment. Another cost of constant digital life is the erosion of patience. We are used to instant responses, instant entertainment, instant answers. Waiting feels unbearable, but life does not unfold instantly. A tree does not grow because you tap a screen. A child does not mature because you swipe right. Love, healing, wisdom, these things require time, silence, presence. Technology trains us to expect speed, but the soul moves at a slower pace. And when we forget this, we become disconnected from our own depth. Perhaps you have noticed that even when surrounded by constant updates, you still feel left out. Even when entertained by endless videos, you still feel bored. Even when flooded with messages, you still feel unseen. This is the hidden loneliness of the digital age. Surrounded by noise, the heart aches for silence. Surrounded by images, the heart aches for touch. Surrounded by messages, the heart aches for presence. The problem is not the phone or the screen. It is forgetting who is holding it. Forgetting that technology is a tool, not a master. Forgetting that life is happening right now, not on the feed. And the more we forget, the more disconnected we feel from others, from the world, from ourselves. The first step in healing this disconnection is awareness. To notice when you are lost in the screen, when you are absent from the moment, when you are substituting digital connection for human presence. To pause, breathe, and ask gently, am I here or am I elsewhere? Am I living or just scrolling through the idea of living? This gentle questioning opens the door to a different way of being. The Buddha's teachings invite us to return to the present moment, to rediscover the richness that is always here, but often hidden beneath layers of distraction. In the age of technology, this teaching feels more urgent than ever. Each notification pulls us outward, scattering our attention, but mindfulness gently gathers us back. To live mindfully with technology is not to reject it, but to use it wisely without losing ourselves. Imagine sitting down to eat. Instead of scrolling through your phone while you chew, you set it aside. You notice the colors of the food, the aroma rising from the plate, the texture as you take the first bite. For those few minutes, the meal becomes an intimate experience, not just fuel. This is presence, and it transforms something ordinary into something sacred. The Buddha spoke of beginner's mind, the capacity to meet each moment as if for the first time, free of boredom or expectation. Technology often robs us of this freshness because it pushes us toward constant novelty. Yet when we bring beginner's mind to our lives, even simple acts, washing a dish, walking to the bus, greeting a friend, become vivid, alive. Presence is not something extraordinary. It is the most natural thing once we stop running from ourselves. One powerful practice is digital mindfulness. Before you reach for your phone, pause. Take one breath and ask, do I truly need to check this now, or am I just escaping the moment? This small pause creates freedom. You may still choose to open the app or read the message, but now you are choosing consciously, not out of habit. And in that choice, you reclaim your life. Another practice is creating islands of silence. The Buddha often taught in forests, gardens, and quiet spaces, reminding us of the healing power of stillness. In our world, stillness is often drowned by constant updates, but we can create small sanctuaries. Leave your phone in another room for a while. Walk without headphones. Sit for 5 minutes in silence, simply breathing. At first, it may feel unsettling. The mind will crave stimulation. But if you stay with it, you begin to rediscover the beauty of simply being. Stillness is not empty. It is full of life. You hear the birds outside, the hum of the refrigerator, the rhythm of your own heartbeat. These sounds, often ignored, remind you that you are alive, part of the great flow of existence. Compassion, too, has a role in our relationship with technology. Often we use our devices to compare, to measure ourselves against others. We see images of perfect bodies, perfect homes, perfect lives, and we feel smaller, lonelier. But when we practice compassion, the screen becomes a window instead of a mirror. Instead of envy, we see the humanity of others, their joys, their struggles, their longing to be loved, just like us. The Buddha taught that compassion is not something we must force. It arises naturally when we see clearly. Even through a screen, we can practice this. When you read a post, pause to remember, this is a human being, not an image. When you send a message, let it carry warmth, not just words. Technology then becomes not a trap, but a channel for kindness. The essence of practice is to bring yourself back again and again to the here and now. When you notice that you have been lost in scrolling, do not scold yourself. Simply smile and return, like guiding a child gently home. Each return is a victory. Each return strengthens your capacity to live fully. Over time, you may find that your relationship with technology changes. You no longer reach for it automatically. You no longer need it to fill every silence. You use it as a tool, but your sense of self no longer depends on likes or shares. And in this freedom, you begin to feel more connected, not less. Connected to yourself, connected to those around you, connected to the world as it truly is, not just as it appears on a screen. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." In the digital age, these words ring even truer. Peace will not be found in endless updates, but in the quiet recognition of the present. Joy will not be found in comparison, but in gratitude for what is here. Love will not be found in endless messages, but in the depth of genuine attention. Technology will continue to evolve, faster and faster, but the human heart remains the same. It longs not for more noise, but for presence. Not for endless stimulation, but for connection. Not for distraction, but for love. When you remember this, you can walk in the digital world without being lost in it. You can hold the phone in your hand, but keep your heart in the present. And in that balance, you discover the true promise of technology, not to disconnect you from life, but to help you share the life that is already full, already complete, right here, right now. There comes a moment in many lives when the questions grow louder than the answers. You may have achieved what the world told you would bring happiness. A stable job, a house, perhaps a family, perhaps recognition. On the outside, everything looks fine. People might even envy you. But inside, a quiet question stirs. Is this all there is? You check off the boxes one by one: degree, career, marriage, possessions, yet the sense of fulfillment remains out of reach. Like climbing a mountain only to find that the summit is bare, the view foggy, the promised joy strangely absent. You smile in photographs, but when the lights dim and the crowd disappears, an emptiness lingers. This emptiness is not unusual. It is deeply human. For thousands of years, seekers across cultures have discovered that material success alone cannot satisfy the longing of the heart. Money may ease discomfort, but it cannot provide meaning. Pleasure may delight the senses, but it fades quickly, leaving behind the same hunger. Even love, beautiful as it is, can bring disappointment if we expect another person to carry the weight of our existence. So what is this hunger for meaning? It is the soul's way of reminding us that life is more than survival, more than achievement, more than accumulation. It is the call to discover freedom, not the freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom to live with clarity, peace, and purpose. Think of the endless cycle of chasing goals. You tell yourself, when I get this promotion, I will finally be happy. When I buy this house, I will finally feel secure. When I find the right partner, I will finally be complete. Each milestone brings a spark of satisfaction, but it fades quickly. Soon the mind creates the next condition, the next requirement for happiness. This is the trap of if only. If only things were different, then I would be free. But the truth is, freedom cannot be postponed to the future. It must be found in the present, or not at all. Imagine a hamster running on a wheel. From a distance, it looks like progress. So much motion, so much effort. But step closer and you see, the hamster is running in place, exhausted yet going nowhere. Many lives resemble this wheel. Busy, full, productive, and yet strangely hollow. The Buddha described this cycle as samsara, the endless wandering fueled by craving and ignorance. And he pointed to another path, the path of awakening, the path of stepping off the wheel. To step off the wheel does not mean abandoning your responsibilities or rejecting the world. It means seeing clearly that your worth is not tied to your achievements, your possessions, or your roles. It means realizing that the meaning you seek is not hidden in some future accomplishment, but available here and now in the depth of awareness. Sometimes meaning reveals itself in the smallest of moments. A child's laughter, a stranger's kindness, the way sunlight falls across your desk. These moments are often overlooked because they do not shout, they do not dazzle. But if you pause, if you open your eyes, you may see that meaning is woven through the fabric of ordinary life. Freedom, too, is often misunderstood. Many think it means breaking all rules, doing whatever one desires. But true freedom is not slavery to impulse. It is the capacity to choose wisely without being dragged by fear or craving. It is the spaciousness of mind that allows you to act, not react. When you are free inside, no circumstance can imprison you. History is full of examples: monks in exile, activists in prison, ordinary people facing great hardship, who discovered a kind of freedom that no external force could take away. This freedom arises when you realize that your peace does not depend on conditions. It arises when you stop demanding that life conform to your expectations, and instead align yourself with life as it is. Perhaps you feel that your life lacks a grand purpose, but meaning is not always found in dramatic gestures. It is found in the quality of presence you bring to each day. Washing the dishes with care can be meaningful. Speaking kindly to a coworker can be meaningful. Sitting quietly with your own thoughts, without judgment, can be meaningful. Because meaning is not in what you do, but in how you do it, in whether you are awake or asleep to the miracle of existence. The search for meaning often begins as a restless quest outward, but it ends inward, in the realization that what you seek has always been here. The longing itself is proof that a deeper reality exists, just waiting to be seen. And when you finally glimpse it, perhaps in a breath, a moment of silence, a tear of compassion, you understand? The freedom and meaning you sought were never far away. They were within you all along. The Buddha taught that true freedom does not come from rearranging the outside world, but from transforming the way we see it. Meaning is not hidden in some distant achievement. It is already present, waiting in the simple act of awareness. You do not have to travel far or accomplish great things to find it. You only have to wake up to what is here. Imagine sitting quietly in the early morning. The world is still. The light of dawn begins to soften the darkness. In that silence, without distractions, you suddenly feel a sense of belonging, as though life itself is breathing through you. This is not a grand revelation. It is the ordinary miracle of being alive. The Buddha often said that enlightenment is not about adding anything new, but about removing the veils that prevent us from seeing clearly. These veils are our endless desires, fears, and false identities. We tell ourselves, I will only matter if I succeed, if I am admired, if I am loved by others. But beneath these stories lies a deeper self, a self that does not need to prove anything because it is already whole. One of the most practical ways to touch this truth is through mindfulness. When you sit and breathe, when you notice your thoughts without clinging to them, you begin to see that the restless voice demanding meaning is not who you really are. Thoughts rise and fall like waves, but awareness itself remains steady, vast, unbroken. In that awareness, you discover freedom, not because the waves stop, but because you are no longer lost in them. Another doorway is compassion. The Buddha taught that when we open our hearts to the suffering of others, our own suffering transforms. Meaning is found not in isolated achievement, but in shared humanity. Think of the times when you helped someone, not for reward, but out of pure kindness. Perhaps you comforted a friend or offered food to someone in need. In that moment, you felt something deeper than happiness. You felt significance. Because you were participating in something larger than yourself, the flow of compassion that binds all beings. To live this way is to step into freedom. No longer chained by self-centered striving, you begin to act from love. And love itself is the greatest source of meaning. The Buddha also spoke of impermanence as a key to freedom. At first, impermanence may seem frightening. Everything changes, nothing lasts. But when you embrace this truth, you stop clinging to what must eventually slip away. You stop demanding permanence from what is, by nature, temporary. Instead, you savor the fleeting beauty of each moment. A flower in bloom, a conversation with a friend, the laughter of a child, each is precious precisely because it will not last. Impermanence teaches us to live fully now, not to postpone life for some imagined future. In this way, impermanence does not rob life of meaning. It gives it meaning. Meditation on impermanence brings clarity. When you see that all things arise and pass, you no longer waste energy chasing what cannot be held. You rest instead in the awareness that watches it all come and go. That awareness is timeless, untouched by change. To know yourself as that awareness is to taste freedom. The Buddha's path also includes right intention living not out of greed, hatred, or delusion, but out of generosity, kindness, and wisdom. When your actions align with these intentions, life itself becomes meaningful. You may not change the world in dramatic ways, but in each small act, you plant seeds of peace. Over time, these seeds grow, touching others in ways you may never fully see. Meaning is not a destination. It is the quality of the journey. Perhaps you worry that your life is ordinary, that you have no great purpose. But the Buddha reminds us, awakening is found in chopping wood and carrying water, in breathing, in walking, in living each moment with awareness. Ordinary life, lived with clarity and compassion, becomes extraordinary. You do not need to wait for a grand calling. Your calling is here, in the way you choose to meet this moment. Imagine for a moment that you drop the heavy burden of needing to prove yourself. You breathe, you smile gently, you look at the world with fresh eyes. Suddenly, freedom is not far away. It is here in the space between one breath and the next. Suddenly, meaning is not hidden in some distant achievement. It is here, in the warmth of your awareness, in the love you give, in the peace you carry. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. You are already free, if only you recognize it. You are already meaningful, if only you live it. The chains were never real. The door was never locked. And when you see this clearly, you step into a new kind of life, not a life free of challenges, but a life free in the middle of challenges. That is true freedom. That is true meaning. We have walked together through the landscapes of stress, money, anxiety, loneliness, technology, and the restless search for meaning. Each chapter has revealed a truth. Suffering is real, but it is not the whole story. Pain touches every life, but it does not have to define life. At the heart of the Buddha's teaching lies a message as old as humanity and as fresh as this very breath. Liberation is possible. Right here, right now. Think back to where this journey began, with stress and exhaustion. The alarm ringing too early, the endless tasks piling up, the feeling of drowning in responsibilities. We discovered that much of this suffering is not from life itself, but from the second arrow, the resistance of the mind, the refusal to let things be as they are. And the antidote was not escape, but presence. In returning to the breath, in tasting the ordinariness of each moment, we find that peace is not somewhere else. It is already here, waiting in the simple act of awareness. Then we turn to money, to the deep insecurity that grips so many hearts. The endless bills, the comparisons, the fear of not having enough. We saw how money, like a river, flows and changes, never stable, never permanent. And we learned that the real wealth is not in numbers, but in gratitude, generosity, and contentment. When the heart whispers enough, anxiety softens, and life feels full again. We entered the world of anxiety and control, where the mind spins out endless what-ifs, believing that worry itself can guarantee safety. But the river flows regardless of our struggle, and life refuses to be caged by our fears. Through equanimity, through trust, through compassion, we discovered a deeper freedom, not the power to control everything, but the courage to rest in uncertainty, to float, not to drown. Loneliness carried us into its quiet rooms, where even surrounded by others, one can feel invisible. But there too, the teachings opened a door. We are not separate, not truly. Each breath connects us to trees, to oceans, to one another. Loving kindness, compassion, and deep listening weave us back into the fabric of belonging. Loneliness softens when we see that we are waves of one ocean, not islands apart. We looked at technology, this double-edged gift of our age. It connects us, but it distracts us. It informs us, but it pulls us away from presence. The Buddha's reminder was clear. Peace comes from within, not from endless scrolling. By practicing mindful use of technology, by creating spaces of silence and presence, we reclaim our attention, and with it, our lives dot, and finally, we touch the question of meaning, the longing for freedom, the hamster wheel of achievement, the cycle of if only, the emptiness even after success. The Buddha's wisdom was a lantern here. Meaning is not in some future reward, but in the quality of awareness you bring to this very moment. Freedom is not found in the absence of challenges, but in the realization that your peace does not depend on conditions. You are already whole, already free, if only you awaken to it. So what remains now at the close of this journey? Perhaps not new information, but a new way of seeing. Life is still life. Bills will still arrive, storms will still come, losses will still hurt. But something has shifted. You have seen that suffering does not have the final word. You have seen that in the middle of chaos, there is a sky of awareness untouched by the storm. You have seen that in the middle of loneliness, there is connection. In the middle of fear, there is compassion. In the middle of restlessness, there is peace. The invitation is simple, but not easy, to practice. To return again and again to this moment. To breathe with awareness. To act with kindness. To let go of the second arrow. To see impermanence not as a threat, but as a gift. To recognize that each day, each hour, each breath is precious, unrepeatable, alive. You do not need to change your entire life to begin. You do not need to wait for the perfect moment. Begin where you are. When you wash a dish, just wash the dish. When you drink a cup of tea, just drink the tea. When you speak to someone, listen fully. When you feel pain, acknowledge it without adding resistance. When you feel joy, savor it without clinging. These small acts are seeds, and over time, they grow into freedom. Remember that this path is not about perfection. The mind will wander, the heart will falter, habits will return. That is not failure. Each time you return to awareness, you are already practicing. Each time you remember, you are already awakening. The journey is not about never stumbling. It is about standing up with compassion each time you fall. The Buddha once said, "As a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life." But this spiritual life is not something distant. It is not confined to monasteries or mountaintops. It is available in the very fabric of your ordinary days. In traffic jams, in office meetings, in family dinners, in moments of solitude. It is here, if you are here, God. So let this be the closing and also the beginning. The closing of one chapter of listening and the beginning of your own practice. The beginning of walking more slowly, breathing more deeply, loving more openly. The beginning of trusting that you already carry within you what you seek. Perhaps tonight, before you go to sleep, you will sit quietly for a few minutes. You will close your eyes, feel your breath, and whisper gently to yourself, I am here. I am enough. I am not separate. I am free. And perhaps tomorrow, when the alarm rings, when the emails arrive, when the day begins its demands, you will carry with you a new awareness. You will still work, still pay bills, still face challenges. But you will do so with a heart that is lighter, a mind that is clearer, and a spirit that knows peace is possible in every moment. The journey does not end here. It begins here, with you, with this breath, with this very moment.